there, but someone else who's taken a very keen interest in the human rights situation there is the Green Senator Lee Rhiannon, who in fact over the weekend was detained at her hotel in Sri Lanka while trying to meet some of the representative groups there. She was questioned by officials before finally having her passport returned and released. And she's now back here in Canberra for the resumption of Parliament. Senator, welcome to the program. I want to talk about your experience before the broader issues there in Sri Lanka that you're concerned about. You were visiting some of the communities in the north of Sri Lanka, and then what happened?
Then we came back to Colombo and continued with a range of meetings with organisations, many, both lawyers, civil society as they call it there, some religious groups. And it was in the midst of those meetings that immigration officers arrived. They asked for our passports, they took our passports, and then they told us to go back to our hotel.
So they literally interrupted a meeting and said, we're immigration officials,
yes,
we're taking your passports.
Yes.
And what reason did they give? That you were in breach of your visa conditions?
Well, at that point, we were actually, the person we were talking to at that moment was a lawyer who's involved with asylum seekers who were returned, and also with those two journalists who had also been deported. So he asked the question to the immigration officer, you know, under what powers are you doing this? And the immigration officer answered it, we have wide discretionary powers and we do not have to give reasons. So that was sort of an introduction.
So no reason was given?
At that stage, no reason was given. When we returned to the hotel, the senior immigration officer, there was 4 and then at times the numbers got greater, but the one who was mainly dealing with us, he said that we had broken our visa, the conditions of our visa, and the government didn't know we were there. Now those two statements are actually contradictory, because if a government issues you a visa, they clearly know you were there, and I also was very public that I was going.
But what were the conditions of your visa, and were they broken?
Oh no, they certainly weren't broken. The visa that we applied for, it was a tourist visa, but you don't have many choices. And the category that we chose, and that was when we talked to people involved in this area, they suggested special projects. So myself and a colleague from New Zealand, also an MP, we went under special projects because that seemed to become the closest category for the work that we were doing, which was essentially talking to people.
So 3 hours of questioning and your passports were finally returned. Did they essentially say you've got to leave though?
Well, at that point they actually changed what they were saying, because the man who releases it is somebody who arrives like a bit after 3 and a bit hours. A new person arrives who's clearly senior. He was a controller, was the title. He showed me his official pass. He said they were no longer demanding that we give them a statement, which is what they had been telling us we had to do. They said, we'll give you your passports back, you're free to go about what you want to do. The only condition is that if you wish to speak to the media, you'll have to get permission from our Department of Foreign Affairs. Now, I was actually ready to go to the airport because my plane was about to leave, so we both headed off to the airport.
Were you planning to hold a press conference there though?
Yes, we had planned to hold a press conference, and I had spoken to the media when I was in the north.
So you'd already done that, but before all this happened?
In the north, no, the press conference was never held. We actually cancelled that because they arrived about an hour before that was due. But when I was in the north, I had met many media representatives. You know, it was set out in the papers that we were there.
Were you worried? Were you nervous at all during this?
Well, look, having your liberty taken away from you is something that's very unpleasant. And when I particularly obviously reflect back on it, it's only 24 hours ago. What was very troubling, because at the end of the day, I'm from Australia, I knew I would be home, I'm a senator, you know, people assist you. But the people we were with from Sri Lanka, the whole mood changed when those immigration officers came in. They were distressed, they were very insecure, they were worried what this meant. And one woman, the woman who drove us back to the airport, she had her identification confiscated, and they took a while to return that. So there was just this atmosphere of fear and uncertainty that underlined for me why there is problems in this country that need to have that thorough international investigation that's independent.
Well, just on that and more broadly, Tony Abbott is still going this week for the CHOGM meeting. He says that things are getting better in Sri Lanka. What evidence is there that they're not?
Well, when I was in the north, I was very troubled because I had read about it, I'd spoken to people, but the amount of land that the army has taken away, which is really denying a lot of people their livelihood, people who are already doing it tough, who are very poor. I went to villages where the fisher folk, many of them are not able to continue their work because the land along the coast is what has particularly gone. A number of the Catholic priests, they call them fathers there, spoke about the rapes of women and also Tamil children being taken away, which I hadn't heard of before. I went to a media office, a newspaper. The bullet holes were still in the walls. They had photographs of journalists who had been shot, and some of these attacks had occurred this year. So there is serious problems, which underlines CHOGM is like a reward for the Rajapaksa government. That shouldn't happen. Like, CHOGM has had a good name for itself. It has values and principles that are about human rights, and at the moment they should be working with this country to get that international investigation that even the British Prime Minister is backing now.
Well, Senator Lee Rhiannon, we thank you for talking to us about it this afternoon. Good to see you.
Thank you.